Welcome to 1970 Bruges, Belgium testing. In 1970, American Bob Nordskog journeyed to Europe to compete in the Berlin 6-hour and the Paris 6-hour Grand Prix. There's his brand new Italian Molinari being lowered into the water for the very first time. The power plant is the new 100 cubic inch Johnson Stinger. There's OMC boss Jack Leake supervising things as Jimbo McConnell tends the boat and Bob looks on. There's ON11 in the water for the very first time at the Outboard Marine Corporation test facility in Bruges, Belgium. Bob Nordskog was the owner of Powerboat magazine and was from Tarzana, California. He was also president of the American Powerboat Association. There's Jimbo McConnell bringing Bob up to speed on the boat setup like power trim indicator, tachometer, prop, and performance of the new Johnson Stinger. Bob dons his helmet and gets ready to cozy himself into the cockpit for the first test run of the day on the Bruges River in Belgium. Bob gets last-minute instructions from Ted May and the facility manager about course layout and power trim settings. They fire the Johnson Stinger up, which probably has already been broken in at the test facility. Jack Leake carefully observing the testing. Jack Leake watching yet another lap of testing. There is the Bruges testing safety boat escorting Bob back to the test dock and hoist. There he is idling back in after a few successful laps of testing. Here's Bob debriefing with Jack Leake, Ted May, and the facility manager. Jack seems to be giving Bob a few pointers on trim settings and RPM. Other input comes from support staff and Jimbo McConnell. Ted May is saying, "I don't care how rich and famous you are or how many inboard or offshore races you have won. If you keep trimming it up so high, you're going to end up getting killed." Jack Leake was always a hands-on type of guy. He was never afraid to get his hands greasy and would jump right in if something needed to be done. I think Jimbo McConnell and Ted May were both cut from the same type of cloth. Here's Bob making sure everything is ship-shape in the cockpit before heading out for yet another test run, probably with a different propeller. Here's Ted May yet again warning Bob not to be too quick with the up trim button. And there is cantankerous Bob taking his advice with a grain of salt. Number 15, Jimbo McConnell, while Jack Leake and Ted May look on. Jimbo is getting last-minute testing instructions from co-driver Ted May and boss Jack Leake. Ted May tends the boat just before yet another test run. Here's Bob, Ted, Jimbo, Jack, and a couple of OMC mechanics and riggers going about their duties. There's Jack Leake adjusting the carburetors on the Evinrude Starflight. Jack was known to be an excellent mechanic. As you can see, he has the touch to set up the delicate carburetor linkages. Here's Bob discussing strategy with one of the many OMC brain trusts. There was always lots of drivers, mechanics, riggers, and directors with whom to brief after a test run. Here is the OMC European race director with boat number 13, Tom McEwen, in the background, along with Jimbo and Jack. This is the Outboard Marine Corporation Quality Control Test Center in Bruges, Belgium. It is a beehive of activity in preparation for the Paris 6-Hour Grand Prix and the Berlin 6 Hours in 1970. Number 11, Bob Nordskog, tirelessly preparing his boat for the Paris 6 Hour that coming weekend. Number 13, Tom McEwen, consulting with head honcho Jack Leake just prior to testing. Number 12, Johnny Sanders, your eventual winner of the 1970 Paris 6 Hour Grand Prix. Johnny won Berlin 6 Hour in 1969, Parker 9 Hour Enduro in 1971, and the Lake Havasu World Championship of Outboard Racing in 1972, thus becoming the first and only man to complete the Grand Slam of outboard tunnel boat racing. That record will never be broken because these 4 races no longer exist. The footage in this video came to us courtesy of Mike Nordskog. The footage came to us in the form of 8mm film rolls and had to be cleaned up at the lab and converted to DVD at considerable expense. As you can see, it is a labor of love to bring this footage back to life over 4 decades later. This video is the first in the trilogy of European outboard tunnel boat racing, with the 1970 Berlin 6 Hour and the 1970 Paris 6 Hour Grand Prix to follow in the near future. This footage is shot midweek preceding the Paris 6 Hour Grand Prix on the coming weekend, and the Berlin 6 Hour the following weekend. Here Jack Leake and Ted May watch the testing and the OMC boys were always joking around when the business of testing was done. Number 14, Ron Hill, and co-driver John Schubert. Number 13, Tom McEwen chats with Bob Nordskog. Number 14, Ron Hill and John Schubert's Evinrude-powered Molinary being hoisted out of the water. Prop testing continues. Number 11, Carl Asmus, editor of Powerboat magazine, was sometimes Bob's co-driver. Bruges testing was not just for 100 cubic inch unlimited engines, but also the highly coveted OE class, as well as the 90 cubic inch OI class. Here's Bob returning to the docks after yet another prop evaluation. Here he is debriefing with one of the test facility staff. This is testing midweek before the Paris 6-hour Grand Prix on Sunday and the Berlin 6-hour the following weekend in Germany. These guys look like the safety boat with a rigger and mechanic or a photographer. Here's the editor of Powerboat magazine, Carl Asmus, being briefed by Bob on the trim and tachometer readings for the Johnson-powered Molyneux. Helmet, check. Life jacket, check. Kill switch lanyard, check. Here's Carl turning the boat around to get a few test laps under his belt before the Paris 6-hour Grand Prix. Here's Carl climbing into the cockpit, making himself comfortable and orientating himself to trim, indicator, tachometer, speedometer, and kill switch. There goes an OE class boat with Carl heading out on the course for a few practice laps. If he can ever get that pesky Johnson started. Don't forget to squeeze the primer, bald Carl. Here's Carl returning to the test facility dock, and Bob waiting patiently to hear what he has to say about the setup. Many of the other OMC drivers like Johnny Sanders, Jimbo McConnell, Ron Hill, Barry Woods, John Schubert, Tom McEwen, Alan Yaw, Tommy Posey, and many other lesser-known OI and OE class drivers were also there. This is the Bruges, Belgium Outboard Marine Corporation Quality Control Center Boathouse. Johnson and Evinrude motors were assembled and tested here. It employed literally hundreds of people to build, test, and distribute OMC products to all of Europe and other points beyond, like South Africa. I see number 39, Tom Percival from Great Britain, a tunnel boat with an older 90 cubic inch Johnson GT 115, and number 35, Barry Woods from Seattle, Washington, driving a Cougar powered by an Evinrude Strangler. Here are all the bicycles of all the hundreds of employees. OMC was definitely one of the major employees in Bruges, Belgium in 1970. Number 35, Barry Woods from the Great Pacific Northwest and his Cougar with Evinrude power. Here's a guy in a cowboy hat arriving, so I would guess Tommy Posey or Alan Yaw from Texas. Here he is pitching in to help wash Bob's boat, number 11 Scarful Molyneux, after a long day of testing. The number 15 canopy with the American flag belongs to Jimbo McConnell. Looks like a taxi bringing one of the many OMC drivers from all over the world to the test facility. OE 86, the Johnson triple-powered monohull, Barry Woods' Green British Cougar, and Jimbo's buddies working on his boat. We leave you with Jack Leake overseeing things, the OMC guys in their yellow jackets, and Bob polishing his boat in preparation for the Paris 6-hour Grand Prix and the 6 hours of Berlin. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mike Nordskog for his faith in Nick Springate and myself to bring this footage to life for future generations to enjoy this golden era of factory outboard tunnel boat racing in the 70s.